Welcome to Safety Tavern's video on telescoping forklifts. This is a telescoping forklift and this is a telescoping forklift. We are not going to be talking about this kind or this kind because these are not telescoping. These are regular forklifts. We're only going to be doing a 1926 focus on telescoping forklifts. So let's get it on. We're going to pick up a training video right in the middle of it. This is from JLG. Overall, it's a really good video. It'll jump around a little bit because I've cut portions out that didn't apply, but here we go.
The operator's manual is an essential part of the machine. If it's missing, contact your dealer or the manufacturer to obtain a replacement. Safety is every operator's responsibility. Taking charge of safety means working with the right attitude, proper personal protective equipment, and with a machine properly prepared for the job. Always read the operator's manual before operating any piece of equipment. Telescopic handlers should be inspected daily before being used. Users should verify that a warning tag has not been placed on the unit by a previous operator. Load charts and safety decals are in place and legible. No safety switches or safety devices have been bypassed. There are no loose components, cracked welds, or fluid leaks. That the machine, including the forks, has not been modified. The condition of the tires is good, which is critical for safe operation. Look for cracks and cuts. Refer to the operator's manual for proper inflation pressures. If the tires require ballast, be sure they are filled to the proper level. A daily inspection is essential to ensure safe operation. Never check for hydraulic leaks with your hands. Pressurized hydraulic fluid can penetrate the skin and cause serious injury. Instead, use a piece of cardboard when checking for leaks. Check for proper fluid levels prior to operation. To avoid fires, don't fill the fuel tank with the engine running, near an open flame, or when smoking. Know where fire extinguishers are kept on the worksite. Walk around the worksite to see the conditions that may be encountered while moving material. Most important, check for overhead wires and their height compared to the machine's lift height and the load's height. Contact with electric power lines is extremely dangerous and will very likely result in serious injury or death. Excavations, grade changes, underground culverts, loose backfill, and fuel supplies stored on site all need to be identified and avoided. Don't take chances. Your well-being and your coworkers are at stake. Handholds and steps are provided for safe access. Always maintain a 3-point contact when climbing on and off the machine. For safe operation, wearing the seatbelt is very important when operating a rough terrain machine. Adjust the seat and seatbelt for comfort before starting the engine. Establish a safe routine to follow when starting the machine. Be sure that the transmission lever and other control levers are in neutral. The parking brake is applied. The fork carriage is resting on the ground. The mirrors are properly adjusted. And no one is standing between the wheels and the frame, or in front of or behind the machine. Check completely around the machine. If the batteries are low and cannot start the engine, consult the operator's manual for the recommended jump-starting procedure. Most machines cannot be started by pushing or towing, and batteries can explode, which is why it's important to consult the operator's manual. Run through the machine's functions to verify proper operation before moving the telescopic handler. Check the machine's steering functions. Start slowly and test the brakes and steering. Operate the machine carefully and smoothly without jerky movements, which could cause the load to shift or fall off. Scan the travel path for people, machines, and hazards. Keep coworkers away from the load when lifting. Never allow riders. They could fall off or be injured by moving parts of the machine. Surface conditions, operating on inclines, and tire pressures can also affect stability, along with dynamic forces such as acceleration, braking, and turning. Stay to the right on construction roads. In congested areas, the operator should increase scanning for potential hazards. Be aware that an unloaded telescopic handler traveling on the work site will tip over to the side easier than a loaded machine with its load being carried in the lowered position. This is because the effect of the load is to lower the combined center of gravity of the machine and its load. Never drive a telescopic handler with the boom raised. Transport the load as low as possible and use the carriage tilt-back function to retain the load better and keep it from sliding off. Travel slowly with the boom fully retracted and be ready to make adjustments with the frame leveling on side slopes. Avoid sloping ground if possible, and do not drive on excessively steep slopes. When ascending or descending slopes, approach the hill straight on and keep the load facing up the slope. When unloaded, travel with the forks or attachment downhill. When descending, use a low gear to permit engine compression to assist the brakes in controlling machine speed. If it's necessary to drive on a slope, keep the load low and proceed carefully. Avoid turning on slopes if possible, but if necessary, make wide and slow turns. On side slopes, frame leveling is intended to be used to stabilize a telescopic handler and its load. Always level the frame before lifting. Never use the frame leveling function when the boom is raised, because this could cause the machine to tip over. If you feel the machine tipping, the safest reaction is to stay in the seat. Keep the seat belt fastened. Brace yourself and lean away from the fall. Do not attempt to jump. Operators must know how to read and use the telescopic handler's load charts located in the cab. These charts show the machine's capacity at different heights and distances in front of the machine. The lifting ability of a telescopic handler is based on the principle of two weights balanced on opposite sides of a pivot point. Factors affecting this balance are the weight of the machine, the weight of the load to be lifted, and the centers of gravity of the machine and the load. Because a telescopic handler has components that move, its center of gravity can move, such as when the boom is raised and lowered, and extended and retracted. When picking up loads, insert the forks all the way. Inspect the load for stability and secure it prior to lifting. With mixed loads, place the heavier items near the fork carriage. Lift capacities are usually established using a 24-inch load center. So if the load is centered more than 24 inches from the backrest, then the actual capacity of the machine is less than what is shown on the load chart. On machines equipped with stabilizers or outriggers, be sure to use the proper load chart, which corresponds with the stabilizers being in use or not. Make sure that the ground can support the weight of the telescopic handler and load, and that any structure the load will be landed on can support the load safely. Before lifting, shift the transmission into neutral and apply the parking brake and level the frame. Place the load by alternately extending and raising and lowering the boom. Feather the controls. Avoid moving the levers to their full limits, which can result in rapid and jerky movements and instability. Reverse the procedure to withdraw the forks. Lower the boom before backing away. Special situations require extra caution. For example, when entering a building, overhead and turning clearance must be checked, and the operator must allow time for his eyes to adjust to the different lighting. Park the machine away from traffic on solid, level ground. If it is not possible to park on level ground, park across the slope and chock the tires. Place the transmission in neutral. Apply the parking brake, lower the fork carriage, and turn off the engine. Never leave the machine unattended with the engine running.
So let's take a look at some of the things that are inside of the operator's manual. First, I pick up the operator's manual. I make sure that it's the right manual for the machine that I'm looking at, which we're going to look at a Genie GTH 844. Now keep in mind, this is a 67-page manual. I'm not going to go through every page. I'm just going to do some highlights. You'll have some pictograms usually, and they'll do a quick little recap of everything that's in the manual, including injection hazard, always wear your seatbelt, no smoking, no open flames, crush hazard, and one of the number one failures of forklift operators I see is not keeping the load low on the ground. Keep it down. You don't need to have it up in the air where you can't see what you're going to hit. Keep it low, and the manual tells you this. Now, Louis the Lightning Bug back in the 1980s told us you got to stay 10 feet away from power lines, but Louis the Lightning Bug didn't have OSHA regulations to comply with. You working in construction must comply with 1926, and it says manufacturer's recommendations right here have what is the voltage that's in those lines and how far you have to stay away from them as per the manufacturer as well as 1926. So stay away from the power lines. You need to know what the voltage is. That way you know how far you have to keep the tip of that fork away from the power line, period. As well as the load, as well as anything else. So we get to the forklift. The first thing we're going to do is a pre-operation inspection. We're going to walk around. We're going to look at things. You know what to look at by looking at the manufacturer's manual and seeing what the manufacturer tells you to look at. Your company may add things to this, but they should never take anything away from this. Once you're done with the walk-around inspection, now we do a function test. Test every function that is possible with that forklift. Check the up, check the down, check the angle in, angle out, boom in, boom out, check it all. This is where you are going to test and press every dadgum button on that machine. Once we're done checking the machine, we've inspected it, and we function test, now we look at the place we're going to be driving around and operating. And this is where, if you are an experienced operator, you know what you're doing, you will immediately be able to identify that you're going to need a wing walker. You're going to need a buddy. You're going to need someone to walk because you are not going to be able to see around a corner, or maybe you're reaching up so high you're not going to be able to see where you're landing the load. Somehow, some way, you're going to need someone to help you. And this is where you identify it. Also in the manual, it point blank calls out if you're having a suspended load, it will need to comply with 1926-404. This training is not going to cover using a man basket, nor is it going to cover using attachments, nor is it going to cover using extension fork. All of these will have additional training. So the first place we're going to look is your company's safety manual, but I don't know your company, so I can't tell you what your safety rules are. But that's the first place we're going to look. Then we're going to look at the actual equipment manual, the operator's manual, and see what rules they tell us we have to play by. And that'll be the number 2 thing we look at. Next, let's look at OSHA. Now, we already know from looking at the equipment manual, we're looking at 1926-1408 power line and 1926-1419 signal person. And depending on what you have that you're moving around, chemicals may come into play, but that's a whole different section. We're assuming in this class, you're not moving chemical. Oh, but there is a chemical that's in that vehicle that you're probably going to have to deal with, and that is fuel. And so if there's diesel or if there's gasoline in that piece of equipment, now they have to have hazardous chemicals training specifically on the type of fuel that's in that piece of equipment. And because now you have a combustion engine here, you got to have a way to put out a fire just in case this fuel does catch on fire or the machine itself catches on fire, which means we have to have fire protection training as well as fire extinguisher usage and inspection training. And I hope you're not operating on a public road because now you're looking at Department of Transportation training as well. And if you're hanging it on the hook, don't forget 1926-404. Assuming you've had all of this training, we are going to go very fast, so feel free to use the pause button as well as the rewind button on your device. So first we're going to pull out our OSHA regulations 1926 manual. Then we're going to flip over and we're going to look for the word forklift. And as you can see right here, it says forklift. Look under powered industrial trucks. So we flip over to powered industrial trucks and look at the regulations that apply to it. Let's take a look. 602 Charlie says that this applies to lifting and hauling equipment other than what's covered in Subpart M. Subpart N covers helicopters, hoists, elevators, and conveyors. So if you're dealing with any of that, don't look here. And then in true OSHA fashion, 602 Charlie 1 says, industrial trucks shall meet the requirements of 1926-600. So let's go look at 600. All equipment left unattended at night, adjacent to a highway in normal use, or adjacent to construction areas where work is in progress, shall have appropriate lights or reflectors or barricades equipped with appropriate lights or reflectors to identify the location of the equipment. Alpha 2. A safety tire, rack, cage, or equivalent protection shall be provided and used when inflating, mounting, or dismounting tires installed on splints, rims, or rims equipped with locking rings or similar devices. Alpha 3 is blank. Alpha 3.1 is talking about when you're working on the machine, like physically doing maintenance on the machine, which nobody here is qualified for. Alpha 3.2, whenever the equipment is parked, the parking brake shall be set. Equipment parked on incline shall have wheels chalked and parking brakes set. Alpha 4, the use, care, and charging of all batteries shall conform to the requirements of subpart K of this part, which we're not going to cover right now. Alpha 5, all cab glass shall be safety glass or equivalent that introduces no visible distortion affecting the safe operation of any machine covered by the subpart. Alpha 6 is talking again about the electrical voltage and how close you can be to the lines unless they've been de-energized or where you have insulating barriers. Alpha 6.1 talks about the ratings and how close you can be, but we've already looked at the graph, so that'll be literally the graph we already put up on the screen. 6.2 is talking about clearance again. 6.3 is talking about clearance. 6.4, a person shall be designated to observe clearance of the equipment and give timely warning for all operations where it is difficult for the operator to maintain the desired clearance by visual means. Meaning if you are anywhere near those approach boundaries for high voltage lines in the air, you need to have a watch person. Now this one's talking about the approach boundary, and sometimes you can use boom guards, insulated links, or proximity warning devices, but this is more aiming towards cranes, but it can also be considered in your telescopic forklift. Alpha 6.6, any overhead wire shall be considered to be energized line unless and until the person owning the such line or the electrical utility authorities indicate that it is not energized line and it has been visibly grounded. Alpha 6.7 talks about working near transmission towers. 6.7a, b, and c talk more about working near transmission towers. 600A7 talks about railroad cars, and 600B is reserved for later usage. And finally, we can get back to 602. 602.1 says that the rated capacity shall be clearly visible to the operator, even if there's some kind of auxiliary removable counterweights. Charlie 1.2 says no modifications or additions which affect the capacity or safe operation of the equipment shall be made without the manufacturer's written approval, and then it goes into how to do that. Charlie 1.3, if a load is lifted by 2 or more trucks working in unison, the proportion of the total load carried by any one truck shall not exceed its capacity. It is talking about a tandem lift. It is not talking about this stupidity. In this picture, everybody here should be subject to disciplinary action, and these 2 operators should be fired. Steering or spinner knobs shall not be attached to the steering wheel unless the steering mechanism is of a type that prevents road reactions from causing the steering hand wheel to spin. The steering knob shall be mounted within the periphery of the wheel. We're not going to talk about high-lift rider industrial trucks because those are designed to pick up the person, like to get up on shelves and stuff like that. That is not the forklift training that you're receiving here, so we're not going to talk about this. The next one here says that the forklift must comply with ANSI B56, and if we go back and look at the user manual for that piece of equipment, you'll see here it complies with ANSI B56.6, so you're going to go on that. Unauthorized personnel shall not be permitted to ride on powered industrial trucks. And what that means is no, 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 and no. Only person that should be on that vehicle is the operator in the driver's seat with their seatbelt on. Personnel baskets will not be covered in either one of these. Again, personnel baskets we're not covering. We come down to 602 Delta, and it says Powered Industrial Truck Operator Training. Go look at 1910-178L. So let's go take a look at that. The employer shall ensure that each powered industrial truck operator is competent to operate a powered industrial truck safely, as demonstrated by the successful completion of the training and evaluation specified in this paragraph. Prior to permitting an employee to operate a powered industrial truck, except for training purposes, the employer shall ensure that each operator successfully completed the training required by this paragraph, except as permitted by L5. Trainees may operate a powered industrial truck only under direct supervision of a person who has knowledge, training, and experience to train operators and evaluate their competence, and where such operation does not endanger the trainee or other employees. Training shall consist of a combination of formal instruction, practical training, and evaluation of the operator's performance in the workplace. All operator training and evaluation shall be conducted by persons who have knowledge, training, and experience to train powered industrial truck operators and evaluate their competence. Training program content. Powered industrial truck operators shall receive initial training in the following topics, except in topics which the employer can demonstrate are not applicable to the safe operation of the truck in the employer's workplace. Truck-related topics. Operating instructions, warnings, and precautions for that type. Differences between the truck and an automobile. Truck controls and instrumentation, where they are located, what they do, and how they work. Engine or motor operations, steering and maneuvering. Visibility, including restrictions due to loading. Specifically on a telehandler, you've got a giant boom on the right-hand side. You will have visibility issues. Fork and attachment adaptation, operation and use limitations. Vehicle capacity, vehicle stability. Any vehicle inspection and maintenance that the operator will be required to perform, refueling and or charging and recharging of the batteries. Operating limitations. Any other operating instructions, warning, or precautions listed in the operator's manual for the type of vehicle that the employee is being trained to operate. Workplace-related topics. Surface conditions where the vehicle will be operated. Composition of loads to be carried and load stability. Load manipulation, stacking and unstacking. Pedestrian traffic in areas where the vehicle will be operated. Narrow aisles and other restricted places where the vehicle will be operated, hazardous locations where the vehicle will be operated, ramps and other slope surfaces that could affect the vehicle's stability, closed environments or other areas where insufficient ventilation or poor vehicle maintenance could cause a buildup of carbon monoxide or diesel exhaust, or other unique or potentially hazardous environmental conditions in the workplace that could affect safe operation. 178L3, the requirements of this section. This is why I have to tell you all of this, is because OSHA says I have to tell you all of this. Refresher training and evaluation. Refresher training, including an evaluation of the effectiveness of that training, shall be conducted as required by paragraph L4.2 to ensure that the operator has the knowledge and the skills needed to operate the powered industrial truck safely. Refresher training and relevant topics shall be provided to the operator when the operator has been observed to operate the vehicle in an unsafe manner. The operator has been involved in an accident or a near-miss incident. The operator has received an evaluation that reveals the operator is not operating the truck safely. The operator is assigned to a different type of truck, or a condition in the workplace changes in a manner that could affect safe operation of the truck. An evaluation of each powered industrial truck operator's performance shall be conducted at least once every 3 years. 178L5 is talking about avoidance of duplicate training. So if I have like 3 forklifts that I operate on this one job site, and I want my employees to be able to hop into all 3 of them, pretty simple. I give them a generic forklift training class, and then I zero in the specific functions and hazards that each one of them have. I don't have to repeat the whole class, just narrow down on all 3 trainings for each one of these pieces of equipment. And finally, 178L6 certification. The employer shall certify that each operator has been trained and evaluated as required by paragraph L. The certification shall include the name of the operator, date of the training, date of the evaluation, and the identity of the person performing the training or evaluation. 178L7 doesn't apply to us, and 178L8 is optional, so that'll be up for the competent person for your company to decide if they want to maneuver into that. Now, I know that was a lot, but understand, if the vendor has ever come out to you, whether it's JLG, Genie, any of these rental companies, if they've ever come out to you and delivered forklift training, understand they didn't give you forklift training, they gave you equipment familiarization training. You were supposed to have forklift training from your company, and then they come out and do a familiarization version of training. That is why going through this, and you probably feel like your head is spinning, whereas going through their training, you could literally smoke a cigarette, go use the bathroom halfway through, and still not miss anything. There's a big difference in forklift training versus familiarization training. Having had this, as well as anything that your company wants to put on top, this will be considered forklift training for a telescopic handler, telehandler, telescopic forklift, whatever you want to call it. Now we're going to take a look at some absolute failures. Here we go. Every one of these videos, you're going to have a moment where they cross the stupid threshold. And that is when an operator takes their brain and chunks it right out the window and does something stupid. They compromise safety, they compromise policy, and they do something that results in failure. Why are you standing here? Why is this aisleway blocked? And what is he trying to do? This is going to end bad right here. Stupid threshold, anybody? Why are these stacks so close to here? Why is he carrying that large of a material in that little access way? And do you really think he's not going to hit right here? Come on now. We've jumped right past stupid threshold into incompetency. This is incompetent. First, none of those materials up there are secured. And what makes it even worse is look here and look there. You can see it was secured at one time, but these intelligent human beings cut it all open. Second, the first thing you do, you don't come picking up, you need to angle back. He is not angling back, thus we're definitely going to have an issue. Third, why is this guy standing here? Get him away. There's no need to be picking up stuff like this with somebody right here that can get hurt. But safety Tavern, he's got steel toe boots on. Great, that'll protect his toes. What about the top of the foot? What about the ankle? What about anything else that could get hurt if a package falls down and lands exactly right there on his foot? How many people do you want to have broken ankles? Because that's how many people you should have standing around while you're jacking around with loose load. This is absolutely incompetency. This one takes a little while for it to actually progress, but you can already see this dude is zipping around way too fast, and just look, you can see he's not looking at where he's going. You must look at where you're going. If you can't see around the load, turn around and go backward. Anybody want to guess what's about to happen? That's right. Are you freaking kidding me? You have warped into the stupid zone. Why are you standing there? Are y'all even qualified? Those are some real cute shoes, but I doubt they're the appropriate apparel for material handling. Are you angling down or are you angling back? And why are you offloading this on an incline? Are the forks long enough to actually pick this piece of equipment up? Everything about this is stupid. Just stupid. Oh goody, another Darwin Award winner. We're traveling forward and we cannot see what we're driving into, and we're about to turn a blind corner. Bring the forks down. We never travel and we cannot see. If this situation is happening, go backwards. But here's the worst part. You're overloading a forklift. It is not designed to be driven elevated that tall with that much weight on it, and none of the materials are actually secured. They're just placed on it. Let's see what's going to happen to these award winners. Really? You can't tell this dude to move his car? Are you kidding me? Get that out of here. Oh goody, now we have 2 people watching. That's good. And now we pick up this genius right in the middle of what's already happened. They had way too much weight, they picked it up, they extended too far out, and as they extended the load up, they reached that fulcrum point and the back tires came off the ground. They ended up dumping the load, and now they're going to swing back because it's a fulcrum point. Remember, talk to the competent person for your company on your job site that's in charge of you if you have any questions regarding telescopic forklifts. I hope this video finds you well, and we'll see you in the next one.